Get ready for an uplifting experience with Coached Soul. Join us as we bring you the dynamic duo of Steve Hudgens, a licensed professional counselor, and Kenya Evelyn, a transformational leadership coach. Together, they'll guide you through engaging episodes filled with valuable insights and actionable tips on mental health, relationships, self-care, emotional well-being, and personal growth. Coached Soul is your go-to podcast for empowering discussions that will help you thrive. So let's get started and welcome our hosts, Steve and Kenya.
Hey, welcome back to Coached Soul. And one of the things we want to talk about today is more of what we call parental alienation syndrome.
I want to shift roles a little bit here because I know
Sure.
a little bit of your story, and let's help our listeners to decode what you mean by alienate.
Alienate is like a wedge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a phrase called parental alienation syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It started in 1985 by Dr. Richard Gardner, who coined that phrase, because what would happen is that during the time of a divorce or a separation, one parent will alienate. In other words, try to cut off, talk badly, or do things
Separate.
to cause a separation. Correct.
Yes.
It's a wedge.
Can you have the alienate parent syndrome while you're married?
I believe so, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at, okay, is this child more a favorite than the other? And so that also can be an alienation of this child's more favored with this parent versus this other parent. And so it can cause a dysfunction within the family.
And this question came to me because I do have a very different story than yours. And I see all the frequencies in my life as well. And I believe that many of our listeners will feel this way. So maybe you didn't have your parents divorced, but you felt the alienation of one parent over another, the amount of time the one we spend with one versus the other, the way that one chooses to listen to one conversation versus the other, and literally parents putting the other parent against the kids. This can happen in a marriage or in a divorce scenario. And if you are a child that lived through it, I just want to send you so much love right now. Receive the worthiness that you are robbed the reflection of. Now listen to my words. Kids, they don't know who they are in the beginning. They look at their parents to see their own reflection. And if they don't see something that is so-called good, positive, worthy, sweet, but maybe I'm doing something wrong because he's not spending time with me, or maybe I'm doing something, maybe I'm not speaking right. So they start making up stories, and now you're full-blown adult. So this is a mirror of love for you right now. Receive it. The idea here is for you to see yourself in the image that you are right now, not in the image that your parents gave it to you. And the other gift I want to give it to you, as far as a reflection only, is that maybe you are the other parent that was alienated. Maybe you didn't have a chance with your kids. I see you. I love you. It's time to be seen. It's time to love yourself and choose to see your own reflection where places that is been hurting for a while. So carry on.
So one of the things I want to, kind of highlight here is, what does parental alienation look like? I mean, some people think, okay, it's normal for how people act and interact because it's normal. But the problem with parental alienation syndrome is the fact of how parents sabotage a relationship with the other parent. Sometimes it's you go to a kid's event and you're sitting there, your ex is sitting there with their partner, and you're watching, these two bio parents are sitting with step parents, and they're watching this child play, and oftentimes snide remarks or pointing or laughing at the other parent and whispering into the other ear of friends around them. And so that's alienation in itself, because you have other siblings of your bio child that's there, whether they're stepchildren or not, can hear these conversations.
Mm.
And then these conversations that carry back into the home, where the bio child, their siblings or step siblings converse. And so oftentimes, what we think is innocent, that we're not doing anything, does bring back harm into the family, because the parents are not thinking about what's happening here. And so it causes that issue.
You know what,
It
Steve?
was,
Hurt people,
oh yeah, and that's a book.
right?
Yes.
It's a book, it's podcasts, and and we have all been hurt.
One of the things too is what I call transgenerational trauma. And what I mean by transgenerational trauma, how does alienation syndrome cause transgenerational trauma? Well, what I mean is that this phenomenon, trauma, occurs when it's experienced by one generation and it's not fully processed or resolved. And instead, it's passed down through family lines, cultural practices, or even community traditions. So, transgenerational trauma, and I know this is going to get a little deep here, it can take on many forms. And it's historical trauma, for example, slavery, forced migration, genocide. This trauma can be transmitted through family stories called practices and collective memory. Intergenerational trauma. These are traumas that are experienced by an individual that is passed down to their children and grandchildren through family dynamics, social norms, and cultural expectations. The other one's called epigenetic trauma, the impact of trauma on individuals' genetic expression, which can be transmitted to future generations. But here's the thing, transgenerational trauma can manifest itself in various ways. And how does it do that? There's an emotional resonance. Children and grandchildren may experience anxiety, depression, or they have mental health issues due to their ancestors' unresolved trauma. For example, you look at slavery and what happened to the African American community. How was the children and grandchildren experience anxiety and depression, other mental health issues that were never resolved? Is because you look at the bio parents that were split in the time that happened. Native Americans as well, or any person that or a race that involved children witnessing their parents being split from the home. And so that causes an emotional resonance of emotional anxiety and depression.
Mm.
Then you have behavioral patterns, intergenerational trauma that influence behavioral patterns such as substance abuse, addiction, or self destructive behaviors. Well, what does that look like? Well, if you have an alcoholic grandfather, the father has now become an alcoholic because of the learned behavioral pattern that's there. And then because the alcoholism is within the family of the generation, now the son has picked up those behavioral patterns. And so it's called a behavioral pattern intergenerational trauma. But it doesn't stop there. It gets into the cultural practices.
Mm.
Traumatic events can shape cultural practices and traditions, such as rituals or ceremonies. Family dynamics, I think we've kind of discussed that. We'll continue to going a little further with the family dynamics as far as leading into conflicts, power struggles, or emotional distance. What I mean by emotional distance is when one person just shuts down and ghosts you, as a modern term is considered. And so here all of a sudden, that's a traumatic response to the brain. Because if you don't tell a person the reason why you're not talking to them and you stop all of a sudden, you might as well slam their head against a concrete flooring and cause them to have a concussion, Literally, that's what happens to the brain. And it does, research has shown the trauma that it causes to the brain. So ghosting like that, if you don't tell a person the reason why you're ghosting them or the reason why you're doing the transgenerational trauma, parental alienation syndrome, that's what's kind of happening. So when you think about parental alienation syndrome, it's scripted. It is a code of frequency that's placed within because this child doesn't know.
Well, here's what's coming up for me. When you alienate the other parent, what are you telling the kids? Without telling the kids, I am your favorite. I
Correct.
am the only one that cares. So it comes out to you feel so unloved. You feel so in the depths of the DNA. You feel so not enough that that you manipulate being enough. You feel so, you feel so not enough. You feel so not loved that you take the other parent out of the picture willingly, and usually that person will be actually a good person.
Right.
That's actually the the scientific studies, right? So that you're the only one in the spotlight, and now the kids have so and so no choice. Not that they don't have a choice, but you make yourself more present by deflating even the goodwill of the other parent.
So
And you
I
make
want
up
to,
stories.
well, and the thing about it is that I want to clarify some things too, because parental alienation syndrome is a scripted unhealthiness within that person.
Exactly.
When there is a dysfunction within a parenting styles between two people, it doesn't help.
Mm.
So one of the things when you think about parental alienation syndrome, it splits the parenting and it hurts the other parent, it hurts the children. And back in the day of in Oklahoma, there was a governor, that I did the research and brought information to him to say, look, if men had a capability of being able to parent and be able to look at it's not all the women who can take care of that child, but men can too,
Mm.
that there's toxicity, there's emotional abuse that sometimes that men go through that don't talk about the emotional abuse. And some experience there for me. I did go through some emotional abuse, but I'm not going to share that out on the open air. But we, meaning a men's group, got together. We were able to work with legislators to where laws got changed to mandatory joint custody
Mm.
because we felt like with mandatory joint custody, this helps men also to say, hey, we want to stand up. We want to take care of our children. We want to be there for our children. And some of us are pretty good, darn good fathers to our kids.
Mm.
And we don't like how sometimes the toxicity of what's there that tries to alienate the father away from the children.
I want to stop you right there.
Sure.
For all the women out there that feel like you have to take care of the children because the men don't care. For all the things that have been said about just cultural, the kids needs to be with the mother, which obviously I'm a mother. I cannot imagine one day without my children, but so does a dad.
Right.
Children needs both. Children needs both. And I am not pro divorce at all. I am pro peace, harmony, alignment, honesty, integrity. So if the integrity thing to do, if the move for integrity is to separate and be a co-parent in a healthy family, it is much better than to keep the family quote unit together where you no longer see each other as couple or have any desire to be that way. Um, but kids need both. And trust me, I cannot imagine, truly, I cannot imagine parent all my three kids by myself. I need my husband. And
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like the responsibilities and the love and the nurturing, the energy, the masculine energy, all of it. Everyone is robbed.
you're right, Kenya. Everybody is robbed, including the children, and they hurt the most. What I'm seeing, and it's the fact that one parent goes to war with the other parent. I want to hurt you. So I'm going to accuse you of hurting. I'm going to accuse you of all these other things that you're doing so that I can protect the kids, so that I can have the kids because you hurt me. So I'm going to hurt you back by taking what you value the most. And so oftentimes men get caught up in this dragnet of hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and it's about being able to learn how to co-parent together. It's about being able to communicate, and that's what happens to families is when we fail to communicate, there is distance that grows within the relationship, and the kids hurt because both bio parents are not communicating one another. One's blaming the other, and the outcomes is devastating because what happens now is, in my doctoral program, I'm in my research and looking at, what is causing these high divorce rates in blended families. There's 34 different typologies of blended families. And so it makes it difficult sometimes to try to pinpoint what has caused the second divorce at 65% to fail over the others. And it's because kids are learning how to triangulate, manipulate, all because of what's happening with the other bio parent, accusing the other parent of doing things. Now, I've seen some good couples who can co-parent together, and sometimes these kids come out very normal and healthy, depending if the other parent remarries or stays single. And if that other parent remarries and that step parent's pretty good and wholesome and brings in some things, then kids can thrive. But when there is transgenerational trauma, so what does that mean? What does that look like? Is this way? I know of a family situation where the original, we're going to call her grandmother, divorced her husband. He took two children, she took two children.
Hmm.
And she alienated her two children away from the father, projecting and accusing that he was the bad father, when in fact that she had a mental disorder, bipolar, and some other things that had happened, and he was trying to take care of her, but because of that, she accused him and projected that. When the daughter married, that same characteristic carried over, meaning the characteristic of parental alienation began, of alienating um, her ex-husband children against him, stating that he's a bad parent. And there were some interesting fine facting factors that came out with this family, that she has a personality disorder that led into more harm and hurt to the children.
Hmm.
So it's a multifaceted phenomenon, that transgenerational trauma. So now, not only did this mother alienate the father from the kids, now the daughter of mother and father has alienated her son against him. So that's his grandson. Because now it's like, hey, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what I feel. I'm going to shut down, and you can't talk to your grandson anymore. And there was no harm, no hurt, no foul play. But that is the MO. That is the method of operation that when I feel hurt, I'm going to shut down. So therefore, I'm going to hurt you with the next best thing. And so that is how transgenerational trauma happens. And so, it's men and women both do this to the kids, and it's not healthy. That's the reason why I'm trying to speak out about parental alienation syndrome, that in my practice I'm seeing a lot of hurt because the adults are hurting each other, and that is triangulating, manipulating, and hurting the kids as well.
If any parent have ever told you the other parent, they don't love you, they don't want to be with you, if they found out that you've done weed, sex, drugs, alcohol, blah, 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 whatever, they will be disappointed and they will not love you. They would flip you off. They will not want you. That is the farthest thing
So
from the
true.
truth.
True. But when you
Period.
have trauma in your past, you see trauma through that lens,
100%.
and it causes scripted trauma and hurts.
Okay,
So
but here's the thing. Am I talking to anyone that doesn't have trauma in their past?
right,
We all
we all
do.
do.
So I want your vulnerability to be so relevant to each one of us that's listening here. I have yet to have any friend, any patient, any client that didn't have mother and father issues, even if your parents were together. Because we're all doing our best, and it's part of our human behavior in our trial and error to pass down our joy and to also pass down our wounds. We pass down everything, especially in our unawareness. So if anything that Steve is telling us, if it rings the bells like, ooh, I was the alienated parent just like Steve, or ooh, I didn't know that my husband could be feeling like Steve. I did that because I was angry at him and I was revengeful of him, because I'll tell you what, when women is revengeful of the man, she can be very convincing.
Say that
And
again one more time, Kenya, because it needs to be heard.
Yes. And I say that with so much love. I'm a woman. I know the powers we have, the magnetism, the tears, the believability. Is that even a word?
Believability.
Thank
We'll pick it
you.
up, okay?
Thank you. We can be very convincing in our pain and in our revenge. And the gift of this podcast today, I want you to be seen wherever aspect you are. If you're the child, if you are the husband, or if you are the wife, you are deeply seen. There is a conversation to be continued. This is not a once and done conversation. There is lies to be shed. As I'm speaking, I feel my entire body with chills. Allow the healing to resonate with you today. The healing by just being heard. Let's talk about it. We're not shoveling the pain anymore. The body wants to speak. Steve and I want you to be heard. We want to speak so that the energy moves and you can create. Let me just tell you right now, Steve, to you and to our listeners, it's not too late.
Correct.
If you are alive, it's not too late. It's not too late to reset your own frequency. It's not too late for you to recreate a relationship with your children. It's not too late for you to choose an identity that is powerful of, you know what, I know who I am, and I'm not that. And I'm not that. I'm not that person that she told me I was. I'm not the person that he told me I was. I know who I am. Or maybe you don't know who you are, but you know you're not that.
So we have to end it again. And it's not about putting one above the other. It's that we both need that. And so until next time,
we love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Coached Soul, where we aim to empower and uplift you on your journey towards personal growth and well-being. Remember, as you navigate through life, you don't have to do it alone. We encourage you to reach out to professionals, seek support from loved ones, and take the time to prioritize your own well-being. Stay tuned for future episodes filled with even more valuable insights and actionable tips. Remember, you have the power to thrive. And with Coach It Soul by your side, anything is possible. Until next time, take care, stay empowered, and keep shining your brightest light. For more information, contact Kenya at kenyacoachedsoul.com.